trendsetter, I got style for you. Take one loss, no one's around for you.
Hello, I'm Gina and I'm in the city that never sleeps. Yes, I'm in New York City, and if you're a geek like me, you know it's time for New York Comic Con. And this is actually my very first time attending this huge event, so I'm really excited to bring you as much footage as possible. And I want to begin with a quick tour of the XM Studios booth. Now, at this year's New York Comic Con, XM Studios has brought some familiar statues, but they've also brought some brand new reveals, and I think that that's what everyone's excited to see. So let's take a closer look at these brand new statues. So some of my favorite statues at the XM booth this year are from the Batman Samurai line. Now, the Harlequin is at the top of my list, so let's start with this piece. Now, seeing it in person, I have to say that the portrait, the pose, and that bike are the three big highlights of this statue. Now, each portrait is done really well, but I prefer the helmet portrait just a little more. Now, I happen to be a fan of these vibrant colors, and of course, this is just personal preference. I just find that these candy bright colors act as a perfect connection to the Harlequin character. So in regards to Robin, I think the standout of this piece is the sculpt and the metallic finish of the armor. You can see how the paint just shimmers on camera. And I also really like the attack stance. This is such a classic picture-perfect pose for Robin. Okay, so now I want to quickly switch your attention to another statue that's not a statue, it's a diorama, and of course I'm talking about the new Darkseid vs. Justice League diorama. And just from my own personal observation, I think that this is the piece at the booth that's turning all the heads, just because of the massive sheer size of it, and also because of the dynamic action pose that this diorama is portraying. Now, at last year's New York Comic Con at the XM Studio booth, I think it was the Batman Insanity that was turning all the heads. Well, this year it's definitely the new Darkseid vs. Justice League diorama that's captured everyone's attention. And if you were to ask me which Justice League member is my favorite on this diorama, I have to say Aquaman. I'm not normally a fan of this character, but the way he's hoisted on top of this huge wave is just incredibly eye-catching. Alright, so let's move on now to the 6-scale statues, and I definitely have to say that these pieces have a much more intricate design than what we typically see with 6-scale or maybe even quarter-scale statues. There's just so many Easter eggs put into each of their bases, and there's just so much jam-packed in that it really takes you a while to notice every little detail. And I think this is most evident in this new 6-scale Lobo statue. And speaking as someone who's not a fan of Lobo, I've got to say that this piece is a showstopper. Alright, so Marvel has Thanos, but of course DC has Darkseid. And this is another statue from the 6-scale line that exceeded my expectations. The thin blue veins along his entire body is terrific in person, and the blue paint just pops right out at you, especially on the body armor, which has this pearl blue finish. And probably equally impressive is the portrait. And I think these deep crevices and the red beaming eyes just give the statue its sinister look. So lastly, I want to quickly focus on Shazam. Now, this is a character that I would usually just pass over, but the dynamic pose of him leaping upwards and flying I think is spot on. Now, the costume and cloak turned out great, but I think they're overshadowed by the light-up feature on the chest. It gives off this very soft, even glow. And when the light-up feature is turned on, I think it just elevates the statue's overall presence, in my opinion.
I just switched the lanes. Damn, he did it again. I just flipped the pain. Strip it and dip it in bass, slab on everything. So big bags coming, coming in. Yeah, flex. I just wanna win. Yeah. 10, active. if he never heard of Ben Dope, he just napping. Jackson's.
So that concludes my tour of the XM Studios booth at New York Comic Con. And I'm sorry if I couldn't show you every single statue, but I tried to focus on as many statues as possible, especially the ones that really caught my eye. Now, if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for even more coverage from the New York Comic Con. Take care, and I'll see you soon.
I came in, did it like the Porsches coming in. Yeah, flex. I just wonder where.